Waterfalls are one of my favourite things to photograph in the middle of the day. You don't need that amazing light at sunrise and sunset to get a good shot. In fact, flat light, the cloudy skies we often get in the UK, generally works very well. But there are a few tricks to get those amazing shots. So here I'll go through some of my top tips to take your waterfall shots to the next level. And you don't need a huge waterfall to do this. Here I am with fairly small waterfalls, and I'll take some nice shots to demonstrate how it can be done. Let's start off with number one, which is to get your camera nice and low, so that you're looking up at the falls. You want to be at the base of the falls. That'll give you a nice foreground lead into the waterfalls, give you a leading line, draw your eye into the waterfall itself, and now really just improve your shots. Fairly little effort. Doing this just makes your shot instantly 100 times better. You know, it'd be so much easier to take a photo from way up there at the very top of the cliff, but getting down here, taking the time to do that, set up your camera as low as it'll go, really just takes it to the next level. Let me show you what I've got set up here. So this is a fairly basic shot just to kick the video off. We've got the nice green rocks on the very right hand side of the competition, the water in the middle, and that's about it. Nice and simple, love it. We'll move on to some more complex techniques on the next shot, but let's get this one in the bag and then walk down the trail and see what else we can find. Now, of course, there are exceptions to any rule, and the exception to getting right down low and being at the base of the falls, I think, applies here. This is where you've got multiple falls happening. So I've got this big fall just behind me, and then as you look further upstream, there's a couple more falls up there. So I don't want to be at the very bottom of this major waterfall down here, because then I won't be able to see the waterfalls at the top. Let me show you some video from the camera, and you'll see what I mean. So as you can see, with the camera angled up like that, we're getting a nice view of each of the waterfalls. Let's put it in. So we've got that one just up there, this one here, and then this one at the bottom. And that's probably the shot I would have taken several years ago, to be honest. It's quite nice. But if we now angle the camera down a fraction, and you can see what we've now done is we've cut off a lot of that sky, a lot of the tree. There's nothing really happening in there anyway. Still got our three waterfalls, just here, here, and here. But we've now got this trail of water coming in from the bottom of the frame. And that, I think, is fantastic because it'll draw your eye through, especially when we do the long exposure. And it'll draw your eye up through all the waterfalls and to the one at the top. Okay, so there's not a massive amount we can do about that mess of tree branches on the left-hand side. I think I like this water coming through into the bottom left of the frame because that really gives us a leading line when we get the long exposure. And that also draws your eye through, and I think that's better than cutting all that out and getting rid of the massive branches. Might take both and we'll see what comes out best. So let's take that shot. I've got my 2-second timer on because the centre column is up and this camera is a little bit wobbly. That just takes the shake out of the camera. It's very important when you're doing a long exposure. You don't want that camera wobbling all over the place because then that'll compromise the image quality. It's also essential you have a good quality tripod just so you can get that camera nice and steady. Makes a nice long exposure, nice and easy. Well, I think now is as good a time as any to talk about your shutter speed. Shutter speed is very personal preference when it comes to water. Some people really like a nice rush of white water, which I personally do. Some people prefer a bit more detail in the water so you can see sort of the power of the waterfall. I think it depends on the falls a little bit. The bigger falls, I think you need a shorter exposure so you really can see that power and all the power in the water. For smaller falls, I think it works better when you've got a bit more white water because there's not as much power in that water, and the white water gives you the leading lines, especially in the pool at the bottom, then draws your eye through the frame. Requires a bit of experimentation, but I think as a general rule, shorter shutter speeds for smaller falls, longer shutter speeds for larger falls. That's nice and easy to remember, and then play around from there. For this one, we're at f16 because there's quite a lot to get in focus. And without a filter on, without ND filter on, I'm getting everything from about an eighth to a third of a second without clipping on the histogram. So if you want to learn more about histogram, check out this video on the top right. But that's what I'm getting at the moment, and I'm quite liking sort of a third, quarter of a second. They're giving me a nice exposure. An eighth isn't quite there in my view. Like I say, I do like a nice white water. So personal preference, but have a play around, see what you prefer. For me, a third, quarter of a second, that's working really well for this one. Now, whilst we're on the subject of filters, I think there are two that are essential for waterfall photography, and that is the circular polarizer and the ND filters. The ND filters come in various grades, so you'll need something like a 3-stop, a 6-stop, and maybe a 10-stop, depending on how long of exposure you like and the lighting conditions on the day. So you probably need a set of those along with a circular polarizer. Circular polarizer, whilst we've got that on, will just take the glare off the water. So as I turn this, you can see that we start to get a bit more reflection on the water in the pools, and that goes a bit more white because that's the colour of the sky, which is often the case in the UK, nice cloudy sky. As I turn it around, we now start to get a bit more of a murky colour, which is the real colour of the water here. With the NDs, you just pop those on, and that will allow you to slow the shutter speed down even more, reduce the amount of light that's getting into the camera, and give you those nice long sort of 10-20 second exposures, if that's what you're after. The only thing I will say is you need to be aware of stacking multiple filters on a really wide angle lens. Now, if you're using something like a 14mm, then depending on your filter system, you might not be able to stack both an ND and a circular polarizer. If that's really important to you, then maybe you need to get a different filter system that will allow you stacking of larger filters, but most of the time, it's not the end of the world. If you want to learn some more about filters, I'll leave a link to the video at the top right here, and that's where I've done a whole video on filters, how to use them, how they benefit you. Might be worth checking out. Now, as much as I really liked that shot, it didn't really have any foreground. There was no good foreground that I could get into it. So what I've done is my next step is move the camera nice and low, got it right down here, right in, almost in the water. We're using this rock just here on the very bottom, and that we're using as foreground, which then leads your eye into the mid-ground of just the water, and then the payoff being the waterfall. Let's take that shot. Again, we're using the same sort of settings, circular polarizer, same sort of shutter speeds, all the same again. It's going to be a focus stack though, this one, because this rock is very close. So we'll focus one image here, and then focus one image on the waterfall. Now that's good, but the only thing I'm not sure about is there's no real pinpoint for your eye to rest on. We've got two waterfalls going on in the background, and it's not really clear, as a viewer of the image, where you should be looking at. You know, you see this rock in the bottom, you get drawn up, and then you've got either path, and they're both a different size of the image, and I don't really like that. So maybe we'll now focus just on one waterfall, probably the bigger one, and that's another point, is to have a good clear view, good clear subject for your viewer. Okay, so in order to fix this two waterfall issue, I've repositioned the camera, pointed it down a little bit further, and zoomed in a fraction. So now we've got these two rocks just to the bottom here, which are acting as our foreground. I think works quite nicely because they're both this sort of reddy orange browny colour, and they balance the sort of bottom half of the picture out. So you've got the same on right and left, with the water just coming into the middle, and that then leads your eye. We've got this water leading out to the sort of left-hand side of the frame. That'll again give us a nice leading line when we get the long exposure sorted, leading up to the main waterfall, and that now being the only focus point in the image. So I reckon that's going to be probably the final image from this location, and I think that's perfected it. Yeah, that's an image I'm really happy with. A few twigs in the background that I can't do anything about, they're just there, but you know, got away with the landscape, that's what's there. Still a nice image nonetheless, really happy with that one. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Hopefully it's given you some tips for the next time you go out and take your own waterfall photos. Hopefully it'll just take them to the next level. If it's been useful, please give it a like so the YouTube shows it to some more people. Maybe it'll help them as well. If you've got some comments of your own, leave them down below and we can all learn together. If you've liked this one, maybe give this video a quick go, which is where I go and take some photos in Wales. There's some actually enormous waterfalls. Had a great time doing that. It really was fantastic. Consider subscribing to some other content. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon. Okay, that's not... You won't stand on that one. This is a tree of many pennies and coins. That's quite cool, isn't it?